Hello and thank you for joining me here today at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura. And first, I wanted to point out that I added wallpaper behind my bookshelves so that the blank space doesn't look so blank and empty. And I love the way it looks. It's so cool. I have not done that side yet. I needed to buy more wallpaper, but yeah, really happy with how that's turning out. But anyway, today's video, I am talking about unpopular opinions. So I asked you to submit your unpopular opinions on Instagram as well as on my Confessions Pet Peeves video. So I will be reacting and responding to what your unpopular controversial opinions are, and then intermixed with reacting to yours, I will also be sharing some of my own. And then some of my own unpopular opinions kind of go along with what some of these comments are, and so I am worried this video might end up being kind of long. If it is, it's going to be broken up into chapters based on the topic, so you can jump around to whatever particular topic you think sounds interesting. And before I get into the unpopular opinions, controversial opinions, I would ask that you like and subscribe this video, and of course, as we go along throughout this video, comment your thoughts down below and we can talk about these opinions in a respectful manner, right? Because obviously these are unpopular opinions. So if you dislike one of these opinions and you have a lot to say about it, I'm down for that. Just don't be rude about it, right? And since my main video that I do are book first movie videos, I thought I would kick things off with some unpopular adaptation opinions. So beginning with two that I received in the comments. One is from the Grape Jelly Library. She said, "The book is not always better. Sometimes the talent, experience, imagination, and collaboration of many people working on one project together, combined with modern technology, helps to bring the story to life in such a way that the movie ends up being far better than the book." And then kind of going along with this, anti-hero Annie the Bookish Badass said, "My unpopular opinion is that movies of books are entirely different from books. For a film, it's necessary to delete passages and or storylines from the book." So yeah, even though my channel is called Why the Book Wins, and the book does win the majority of the time. I calculated it it was over 6 months ago now, I think. And at the time, I think it was 75% of the time I think the book wins, but that's still 25% of the time where I like the movie better. So that does happen. And also, which kind of goes along with why it's necessary to delete passages from books and things. And they are just so different, right? They're totally different mediums. And so if you go into a movie wanting to see everything that was in the book, you're going to be disappointed. And I think I used to have the default attitude of when it was a close call, I would be like, well, the book had more to it. So I'm therefore going to default and just say the book wins, even though I did love the movie. But I'm trying to not do that anymore because of course the movie isn't going to have everything that the book has, and it shouldn't, right? I prefer when books are adapted into movies rather than TV shows, because TV shows, they often have filler episodes and things, and it just drags on more. And I'm just this wasn't necessary. Just turn it into a movie. And yeah, you need to cut some stuff, condense scenes, get rid of certain characters or combine characters or whatever. But I'm okay with that. I don't want an adaptation to have everything from the book unless it's a short story or something, because it just doesn't work. And yeah, Grape Jelly Library, seeing the book brought to life in a faithful way, right? Because also I'm fine with movies making changes to some of the details. Honestly, it doesn't bother me, especially smaller details like the look of a character. If it's not crucial to the story, then go ahead, make all those changes. What I want to stay true though is just the overall theme and the message and the character arcs. I want the movie to stay true to who these characters are. Even if they do make changes with the character, I just want it to still stay true to the book, in its overall message and theme and character arcs. And so when you see a movie that's faithfully brought to the screen from the book, that is just such an amazing experience, right? And when the casting just is so spot on, and when it's also just in general, when it doesn't have that money grab vibe to it, it doesn't feel like this director and this creator was focused solely on the money. It seems like they just had a passion and a love for what they were doing. That comes through the screen and you can feel that. And that makes for a fantastic movie, right? So I will say that, yeah, the book does not always win, and there are incredible adaptations, and adaptations shouldn't be exactly like the book either. And even the adaptations that are really close to the book though, they need more than just being close to the book. They need that other special something, And I think when I was younger, I did want everything. I wanted it to be so close to the book as possible. And if he had blonde hair in the book, then he needs blonde hair in the movie or whatever. Whereas these days, honestly, details like that I could care less about. Which, by the way, I did want to share an adaptation that I disliked because it made a change to one of the characters. But the change they made to the character was a big deal because it was an integral part of the story, and that is the 2020 adaptation of Rebecca. In the book, the fact that Maxim is like 20 years older than his new wife is a crucial part of the story, that age difference. Whereas in the 2020 movie, they cast two actors that are like the same age. And so that is a detail that bothered me because that was an important thing in the book. And so the fact that they changed that just really annoyed me. So that's one example where a smaller detail was actually a big deal and should have been kept the same. And then I hope that wasn't too rambly in that whole section. But moving on, I want to talk about booktube and movietube because one commenter, Thien, said, "My controversial opinion is that movie YouTubers tend to be more pretentious than booktubers and also more opinionated and unyielding. However, as a whole, they are more entertaining and thought-provoking. The video essays some people do on movies far outshines most deep dives that go into books." And I will say, I feel like a lot of the movie reviewers I watch, maybe not a lot, but there's definitely some movie reviewers who are more harsh and more critical. Whereas I think most booktubers, even if it's a book they don't like, they're not that harsh with it. Although, we always have our worst books of the year at the end of the year. And then I have my, my own rant review book videos. So it's not that booktubers are never negative or critical. But yeah, I do think that you have a point about maybe being more opinionated and unyielding. So I can definitely see that. But I also think I do actually agree with you on like video YouTubers doing deep dives into movies are better than the deep dive into books, which to be honest, an unpopular opinion when it comes to booktube for me is that I don't like reading vlogs. I tried to film one once and it was fine to film, but I feel like I didn't do a good job about the, with the vlog style of it. But I also just don't enjoy watching reading vlogs. I like book review videos and I like when they get into a deep dive into the book, but I feel like that just doesn't happen often. And it seems like oftentimes with maybe both books and movies, when they do reviews, they keep it all spoiler free. And that's another unpopular opinion is I wish reviewers would get into spoilers more often because personally, I often watch reviews after I've already seen the movie or already read the book, and I want to hear the thoughts the person has on the ending and on the spoiler aspects. So the fact that so many reviews and so many reading vlogs and whatever are kept spoiler free annoys me. Like I want to hear about the spoilers, especially when a person like really loves a book or has strong feelings either way about the book. But then as far as the details of the plot as to why they loved it, they keep it vague because they want to be spoiler free. I'm like, no, like get into the details of what was it specifically, like why, give me the specifics. The like movie analysis videos or like the videos that like break down this movie scene or whatever, I do think those are more interesting. They come across just more thoughtful, I guess. And yeah, I really love those videos where they just really analyze the themes in certain movies or yeah, like I said, like scene breakdowns. I love those. And yeah, we just don't really get that with books. Going along with this, another unpopular opinion, and this one is by Boogalizer MD. They said, "My pet peeve or controversial opinion is not every book or movie is out there to be solved like it's a puzzle. You often see videos with ending explained in the title, and I don't think most of them are well served at all by that approach. Sure, if it's a mystery detective story with a convoluted plot, but weird books can simply serve to affect us emotionally rather than try to unlock the logic. The desire to solve them is understandable, and discussion of the weird elements is often insightful, but claiming the answer is the explanation turns me away." So yeah, I think I would definitely say that this probably is an unpopular opinion because I think a lot of people do enjoy those explanation videos. And like I just said with that previous comment, like the deep dives that go into a movie and its meaning and stuff, I enjoy watching those. And also, full disclosure, I have used ending explained in my titles because that is a good like SEO word because a lot of people search that. And so people search it because someone started using it on their videos and so it became what people search, and because people search it, people use it even more often in the titles so that they appear in the search. And so it's this cycle we have going on. But anyway, so yeah, I have used that phrase because it gets good search volume. But anyway, I agree though that sometimes people can get lost in the analysis of it. And on one hand, there's certain books and movies where that's what makes them so great is the fact that there is no solid answer and you can discuss it for days on end and just hear all of these different opinions and all of these different views. And at the end of the day, you're not going to have a solid conclusion as to what it means. And that's the point, right? There is no solid conclusion and it's meant to just be discussed. And so I get liking an analysis and like the breakdowns and hearing what that specific person thought. But if that specific person is acting as if like this is what it means and this is only what it means, then yeah, that's annoying because it's like, well, no, maybe certain books have like a specific meaning that it has, but a lot of like the weirder books, I don't think maybe the author has a specific meaning in mind, but I also think the author realizes that each reader is going to apply their own meaning, and that's just the beauty of reading, right? So yeah, on one hand, I agree that when someone acts like they have the answer, that can be annoying. But on the other hand, I also love those breakdown analysis videos, those deep dives. And sometimes I agree with them, and then sometimes I don't. But either way, I always love hearing how other people interpret things. And then Joseph shared that he has never liked The Great Gatsby, even though I have all of Fitzgerald's works. And so I haven't read The Great Gatsby in a very long time, so I can't say whether I think it's overrated or not, because I just don't know. That's one I keep meaning to cover, and then I just haven't. Maybe I'll include it in an upcoming poll at some point and see if it wins. But I will agree, though, that it's annoying how with certain authors, also with authors in general, we cling to these writers as if they are the best, and we cling to certain books of theirs as if like this is like the creme de la creme when it comes to F. Scott Fitzgerald. And so it can be annoying when it's like, I mean, no, which Ken Kesey, right? Everybody is like, oh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which that book, like on one hand, it's well written, but honestly, like the message of that book is a very sexist message, right? It's not just, it has sexist elements, like the message of it is very misogynistic. And so the fact that people are like, oh, that's his best book. And it's like, no, that's like super offensive and wrong. And yeah, there's aspects of it that I liked, and I talk about it in my book first movie video for it. But anyway, Sometimes a Great Notion, that is Ken Kesey's best book. So it's annoying that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the one that everybody talks about. So I could see if you're a fan of other Fitzgerald works and you get annoyed being like, oh, The Great Gatsby, like that's all anybody talks about. So we do, like as a society and a culture and with our school systems, we get hooked on like this book. This is it. And that can get kind of old, especially when it's like, you know, maybe that book has had its day in the sun and maybe it's time to focus on new writers and new books, which actually this kind of segues well into another topic of one of my own unpopular opinions that wasn't directly related to anyone's comments, but it deals with censoring content from the past. So censoring past books and censoring past TV shows, specifically like altering the offensive content to make it more inclusive and get rid of the offensive, harmful things that it originally had. And so I specifically wanted to talk about this because back in 2020, a lot of TV shows removed scenes or whole episodes that had blackface in them. And at the time, I was like, well, that's good, right? Because that's like super offensive and harmful and it should be removed. Like that's not funny and it shouldn't be there. Which, man, I have so many thoughts about this whole section I'm going to get into. But anyway, so I used to think that was a good thing. But then last year I read Gabrielle Union's second memoir, You Got Anything Stronger. She has two memoirs. I highly recommend them both. But in this book, she has a section where she addresses that specific time when those scenes and episodes were removed, and her insight into that totally changed my mind. And so I wanted to share what she had to say and then share how that has affected my thoughts about this in relation to the TV shows as well as books, which we'll get into the books because I definitely have thoughts on that specifically. But I'm going to share some quotes, and she is just so powerful in her writing and so eloquent. And I had so much that I was going to share from this section, but it would have gone on forever. So I'm just going to share like 2 paragraphs. But like I said, I highly recommend this book and her first memoir. We're going to Need More Wine. Both of them are amazing. But anyway, okay, I'm going to share what she says about back in 2020 when TV shows removed those scenes and those episodes. During the Black Lives Matter protest against systematic racism, an urgent call went out among network execs and creatives to destroy evidence of the use of blackface in their shows. The racism was quickly removed from streaming and on-demand services. These shows that used blackface were not Amos and Andy reruns with Kingfish working a scheme in black and white. Blackface or brownface was used on 5 episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 430 Rocks, 3 Scrubs, and single episodes of The Office, Mad Men, and Community, among others. All of these streaming cash cows carry the accolades of television's finest offerings. The list of popular sitcoms and dramas undergoing edit and deletion were so long that news sites ran lists of specific videos leaving streaming and syndication. As these episodes disappeared, creators either offered no comment or crafted tortured sentences apologizing for the pain these images caused. I'm struck that these images and tropes are apparently walking and talking, bursting into writer's room to wreak havoc with their violence. I'm sorry you were hurt, says the creator standing above you with the machete. It's this darn knife. The apology is only for the pain the jokes have caused, blaming the knife for the murder. But there is one thing they forget. A cover-up can prove intent. I've been on enough cop shows to know that when someone hides the evidence, it's because they know they are guilty of a crime and are afraid of the consequences. In fact, we are told these shows that use blackface define a golden age of television, one that will be studied by culture critics for decades to come. But if a historian who did not witness the racism they employed wants to study race in 21st century America, or even convey a wholly accurate description of what these shows broadcast as pop culture, they cannot. Who does this serve? Certainly not some comedy-loving kid who wants to study the era and looks like me. They deserve the truth. My grandchildren won't have a whole picture of the life I lived and worked in. Grandma talked about some bullcrap, they'll say, but I can't find it. The grandchildren of these blackface artists won't learn from their sins either. They will be free, like so many people today, to enjoy their generational wealth without concern that it came at anyone's expense. The crime simply never happened. The legacies of these shows will remain intact in the hands of their creators, whitewashed clean. So yeah, she made such a great point about how like they're trying to change history and they're altering the past, and people going forward, like decades from now, will look back and they'll just be like, oh, like it wasn't that bad. Like I didn't see anything wrong. And also it comes down to like, are they really sorry that that happened? Or are they just wanting to stay relevant and stay popular, and they just want to remove the offensive content? That way people will be like, oh, good for you, and keep watching their shows, right? So did they really care? Or are they just wanting to keep the money coming in, you know? Which that also brings me to when you censor past books, because a few months ago there was talk about the Roald Dahl estate, whoever owns his books is changing his content so that it won't be like fat phobic and things, and it's just removing offensive content, making it more inclusive and less offensive. And I thought of Gabrielle Union because I was like, you know, people for in the future are going to read these books and be like, you know, I don't see anything wrong. Like this is done in a very respectful way, so I don't see the problem. And so you're changing history. But also, does Roald Dahl, does his estate actually care about hurting people who read these books? Or do they just care about keeping Roald Dahl relevant? Like we need to keep kids reading these books and we need to keep these adaptations being made. So we are going to fix his books. That way they can still be relevant and they can still be read by kids for like decades to come. Which kind of goes into, you know, what I was talking about earlier where, you know, if Roald Dahl is offensive, maybe we should move on from those and find a new author, right? Like maybe Roald Dahl has had his day in the sun as a great kids author, but maybe he's had enough adaptations and enough attention. And rather than just like altering his content so that it's still relevant, why don't we just focus on someone else, right? There's so many amazing writers, and yet we get caught up on focusing on the same ones. And honestly, I feel this way about Stephen King, which I love Stephen King, right? But I'm tired of how many adaptations they keep making of his books, because there are so many other writers who deserves to have adaptations made, right? Because when your book is made into a movie, that is amazing publicity for you, and your book sales go up, and it's so great for you as an author and for your books. And so the fact that we just keep doing Stephen King adaptations rather than focusing on different writers really bugs me. Like, yeah, Stephen King is a good writer. Everybody knows that. Like, he's kind of old news at this point. Like, can we stop adapting his books and can we like move on to other writers? Because there's a lot of them out there, not just Stephen King. And so yeah, my unpopular opinion is that I'm against censoring content from the past, not because I don't want things to be inclusive and I don't want things to be offensive, but I'm against changing it because one, history down the road, we're changing history and they're going to be like, oh, people said it was sexist or racist or homophobic, but it seems fine to me. And then same with like, you know, if that writer is offensive, rather than changing it, let's just move on and find someone else to read, you know? And again, I'm specifically mentioning Roald Dahl because he was in the news because they are altering his book specifically. So that's why I specifically mentioned him. But also with like removing the blackface from the TV shows, there's also like, you know, racist jokes and sexist jokes in these TV shows. And it's like, they make it seem like it's okay because it's like, well, we don't actually have these views, but it's funny because we're showing how this character is wrong for thinking this, and that's what makes it funny. So like, yes, it's a sexist joke, or yes, it's a racist joke, but it's okay because we're showing how stupid the character is who thinks this, and that's how they justify it. But at the end of the day, you're still having your audience laugh at a sexist joke and at a racist joke, and so it's still not okay. And so yeah, I'm just, people might be like, oh, you're being like a snowflake or whatever by not finding those sexist jokes funny or those racist jokes, because like you're missing the point of it and it's comedy. But it's like, no, like I see what they're going for, but it's just offensive and it's not funny and it's normalizing that behavior, right? Like you might not think it's normalizing it by the way they talk about it in some shows, but they are. So anyway, that is my ramble about censoring content. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And again, I highly recommend both of Gabrielle Union's memoirs. She's such a great writer, and yeah, her books are great. And moving on, this kind of goes with the Great Gatsby content, which part of me is like, after talking about something that's, I feel is so important, right? And it is controversial and it is something so political, which I don't usually get into. It's hard to go from that to, okay, now the other unpopular comments. But anyway, so this next one is from Hunter, and he said, I guess my controversial opinion is that there is no such thing as the greatest whatever. Just because you're a great painter or writer doesn't mean you're the greatest in the world. Yeah, I definitely agree with this. And I don't know how controversial this is. There might be people who think there is one single greatest writer in the world, maybe, but I certainly don't think that. And there's always someone better. There's always someone worse, especially in something as creative as writing, right? And making movies, right? Because there is no... it's like grading an English paper versus grading a math test, because a math test, like there is one answer and you're either right or you're wrong. Whereas with something more creative, like it's a bit trickier. But honestly, even with like sports where it's like he finished first, so obviously he's the greatest. But even that, like there are people in the world who aren't competing professionally who might be better. They might be faster, but we'll never know because they're not professionals, right? So for anyone to consider themselves the greatest just because you have the most medals or whatever, like, I'm willing to bet there's someone out there who's better. They're just not competing, And this actually ties in nicely with another unpopular opinion by Randall. He said, my controversial opinion, I have learned to abhor movie awards, and I don't believe that the number of awards matter. How can you say one movie is so much better that it deserves awards? I hated Everything Everywhere, but it won as many awards as Lawrence of Arabia. It was comparable to Lawrence? So first of all, saying you hated Everything Everywhere All at Once is definitely a controversial opinion because I loved that movie. I did see it in like early May of 2022. So that was, I was hearing positive things, but obviously that was before all of the hype with the Oscars and stuff. So maybe it got overhyped for you. I'm not sure, but I loved that movie. However, I do agree. My potentially unpopular opinion is that I do not think any movie ever deserves to sweep the awards, because so many movies that are great end up going empty-handed just because we're all so obsessed with this one single movie. Like Lawrence of Arabia, I haven't seen that in like 20 years, so I don't trust my memory on how good it was. But I'm willing to bet that one also did not deserve as many awards either, because again, so many great movies end up going home empty-handed. And so Everything Everywhere, I was happy it won Best Picture and, like Best Editing and like some of the acting awards I was happy with. But some of the other awards, like, can't you spread this out? Like Tar deserved to win something. And there were other movies too. There were so many great movies. And yet so many of them won 0 awards. And so I'm just not a fan of that happening. And I always think of when Return of the King won so many awards at that Oscars. And yeah, I just don't think it's fair, right? Like, and also the winner of Best Picture these days often is also the winner of Best Director. And usually that just goes hand in hand. And I kind of feel like that should be split up too, right? Because if a movie is already getting Best Picture, maybe we should just split up the awards and give Best Director to another movie, right? That way we can include all of the amazing movies and not just be so focused on one single movie from that year. Unless it's like a bad year for movies and there really was only one movie that deserved all the awards. But honestly, I feel like that never happens, right? There's always a few movies that are just really solid and really deserve the attention. And then also to continue the unpopular Academy Award opinions, 2017, there was the thing where they opened the envelope and were like, La La Land Best Picture. But then they were like, wait, no, never mind. It was Moonlight that won Best Picture. And now, fast forward however many years it's been, the majority of people feel like La La Land should have won. And La La Land is the better movie. And people are obsessed with La La Land. And even today in 2023, Instagram is filled with people talking about La La Land. And I saw that in theaters when it came out soon after, and I was like, yeah, like it's fine. And I'm someone who likes musicals and old Hollywood. But yeah, I was just kind of neutral. And I also like movies that aren't like conventional, right? And the way that movie ends isn't necessarily conventional. So I like those things, but La La Land I just thought was okay. And so seeing now how obsessed people are with it and how people think that deserved to win over Moonlight, like no, my unpopular opinion, Moonlight deserved a Best Picture. That was the better movie. That movie was more beautiful, more emotional, more tragic, but also just such a beautiful movie, like I said, and just so powerful. And that one definitely deserved Best Picture. Like, are you crazy? Not La La Land, but so yeah, that's my La La Land rant. And then another one is that in 2016, I think that The Revenant should have won Best Picture over Spotlight, which also that was the year Interstellar came out. Why did not Interstellar have a Best Picture nomination? Are you kidding me? So I would have been happy if Interstellar won Best Picture, but, or wait, no, Interstellar was the year before when Birdman won, and I love Birdman. So I'm happy Birdman won, but I also would have been happy if Interstellar won. But if Birdman and The Revenant won, then Alejandro Inarritu would have won 2 years in a row, and that would have just been such a cool achievement. And he's an amazing director, and Birdman and The Revenant are both fantastic. And the fact that Spotlight won over The Revenant is stupid. I saw Spotlight in theaters, and again, that was a movie where I was like, yeah, that was good. But controversial opinion, I found it a bit forgettable. Whereas The Revenant, I will never ever forget, and it's just such an amazing movie. So anyway, those are some of my unpopular Academy Awards opinions. And then another one, Preston said that if you have to ask whether or not Deckard was a human or a replicant, you've missed the point of the film. And this is, of course, referencing Blade Runner. And I think with the book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I don't think anyone questions whether or not Deckard is an Andy, is what they're called in the book. But with the movie specifically, there's people who think that Deckard is a replicant. And when I watched the movie for the first time, I was like, and then I heard that people debate whether or not he's a replicant. I was confused because I was like, what? What made them think he is a replicant? I don't understand this. But yeah, kind of like Preston said, yeah, I don't think that's the point of the book or the movie. And yet people get so caught up in this. And yeah, Preston and I talked about Blade Runner, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and we do discuss this specific topic. So if you want to hear more about that, you can watch our video. But yeah, this is one of those things maybe people like to analyze and discuss and get into, where unpopular opinion for me, I don't care. I don't think he was a replicant, and I don't get why we talk about whether or not he was. Okay, and I'm just scrolling through. I think I got all of them. Oh, actually, there's one. This is a pet peeve. I don't know if she meant this as a controversial opinion, but Jacqueline said, my pet peeve is the lack of synopsis on book covers, like when it has just a list of comments by various authors. I agree. When it's just a list of praise from past authors, I'm like, I don't care. But I also don't like synopsises that give away too much. I just want just a little glimpse into the story, and that's all. Because if you tell me too much, I don't like that. So it is hard to find the perfect balance between telling me something but not telling me too much. So I do agree to some extent with that one. Oh, so another one actually that I did want to talk about this is David. So he said, so my controversial book view is that the cancer romance trope needs to die. What I mean is a book like A Walk to Remember, where the main character has cancer and then gets romantically involved with another person, usually a cancer patient, especially if there's a sex scene, because in case you didn't know, due to the low amount of blood clotting due to the chemo, it would actually be extremely dangerous for a cancer patient, one that is at least receiving treatment, to have sex. And I have read A Walk to Remember, and yeah, it's just so cheesy. And again, yeah, I don't like when books romanticize trauma. And this I specifically talk about with Kristen Hanna in a video I posted, and that is definitely an unpopular opinion because I got so many comments on that video of people who disagree. But I feel like she romanticizes, glamorizes trauma, and a lot of books do that. And yeah, it annoys me so much when it's getting cancer. Maybe I've never had cancer, right? And so maybe someone who has cancer wants to read a more positive story, even if it is very unrealistic. But then whether it's romanticizing a disease or romanticizing poverty or addiction or abuse or whatever. Okay, spoilers for The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, because this is full of this. So first of all, the daughter is raised by a dad who is an abusive alcoholic. So you have that. But then they move to Alaska and she falls in love with this boy. And then they have this star-crossed lovers type of thing. And then the boy she's in love with, ends up getting in an accident and becomes paralyzed, and she has to care for him. And then the mom gets cancer, and all of these terrible things are happening. But the book is written in a way that glamorizes it and romanticizes the tragedy of it all. When it's no, this isn't glamorous at all. This would be horrible. And also books that have a toxic relationship, but it's written in this glamorized way, it's going to cause young readers to get in bad relationships because they're oh, that's it's so romantic when you have to fight for the guy because he doesn't actually like you, but you have to convince him, and then you convince him, and then he cheats on you, but then like, oh, all these horrible tragic things, but it's so romantic and it's so exciting too, right? When you get hooked on the excitement, even though it's a bad kind of excitement. So I'm kind of going on a tangent here from his original comment, but I do agree when they romanticize things that are actually like, no, like that would suck. That would be horrible. Like you would not be in a place to be having sex with someone when you're going through cancer treatments. So yeah, that is just really annoying. And so that is something, a huge pet peeve of mine is when a book does that. But I also really appreciate books that discuss these difficult things and do it in a way like if they're writing about difficult things, it should make you feel like uncomfortable, right? Because it is an uncomfortable, horrible thing. So it should be a difficult book to read when it's talking about those things well, you know? But a lot of books like to romanticize it. And I don't think they do cover it well because they don't make it uncomfortable and they don't show you the harsh reality enough. And instead they kind of like, oh, rose-colored glasses over it, you know? Which this does relate to the cancer patient thing is because older movies and older books like to like glamorize like a sickly woman, right? And like, oh, that's so romantic because she's a damsel in distress and she's sick and she's dying, but she's beautiful. It's like no. So yeah, I agree with that one. And in general, not a fan of books like that. But anyway, so that does wrap it up for all of the controversial opinions. Again, this was kind of a longer video, but I hope you guys found it interesting. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you again to everybody who commented on my confessions and pet peeves video. And I received a lot of comments because I talked about feeling insecure about not having a literary degree or any degree. I never graduated college. So that's something I've always been like self-conscious about. But specifically not having a literary degree, I received a lot of comments about saying that, you know, they love my analysis and they don't care that I don't have a degree. And it's not like if I had a degree, I would be better than I am even. So really appreciate those comments from all of you. And so thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Bye.